Hello, you're listening to Kuzcopia on the creative process. Today's topic, writing plot. In any work involving storytelling, may it be comic books, novels, movies, episodic shows, it is vital for the story that is trying to be told, and therefore the entire storytelling part of such an endeavor, to have a solid backbone. The way you achieve that is when you devise the plot. Now, I'm a big fan of tying concepts to a kind of title names because it helps remember them, to lock the concept into your overall network of understanding. And we're starting today with what defines a plot, which is its plotline. That's the first name in the board. The name not only assists in its own understanding, good names do that, but it helps visualize it as well. So in a story, you have a plot, and that plot can be visualized as a line in its most simplistic interpretation, beginning and end. And you should be able to summarize it as if you were looking at it in that simple a way, even though it can more often be much more complex. Keeping it in 2D perspective, full of rises and lows and curves and twists. And that's where we start at understanding the mechanic behind engineering a plot line. We want the line, and no matter what you're plot writing for, whether you can keep going at your own pace, always going forward, or you're forced by production constraints to take some long ways around, the objective is to make it a true line, uninterrupted and all pretty like. Yeah? Now, once you don't have a straight line, but a curved one or a group of different segments, I like to think of it as vector graphics. The way you make a line bend in geometry and curve is by introducing two things. Halfway points that the line needs to cross, aka plot points. And you also introduce anchors, which shape how the line goes through those points by shaping its entrance and exit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all this analogy with vector graphics is coming along and shaping nicely in your mind. So let's get to it with our second and third words, plot points and plot anchors. Plot points define where your plot line goes, its heading. Meanwhile, plot anchors define its shape. Simple enough, right? Plot points are most generally events, objective happenings like a storm or a death, while plot anchors while plot anchors are generally character motivations, subjective though understandable happenstances. Much like the geometry example, these two are absolutely tied together, because the event happens to the plot, which causes a reaction. Both shape the plot line very significantly. A bad plot point can rarely be salvaged by a good plot anchor, though it is possible. It's obviously an event that does not really lend itself to the shape of the plot line or where you want it to go. This is the effect that a bad Deus Ex Machina can have. To see examples of bad plot points, just watch, usually most people criticize bad plots, they're talking about bad plot points when they're not talking about plot holes. A bad plot anchor, however, is much harder to spot. Oh my gosh, alright. To spot. It's much harder to spot and can muck it all up, essentially. It creates an ugliness, a jolt, a break, an abrupt curve in the line that upsets the reader to look at. Subconsciously speaking, they don't objectively recognize it. Now, of course, you can do the biggest mistake, which is not have them at all, which brings us to the plot hole, which I just said. It's the most famous, popular term, plot-related term that you can think of is a plot hole. So basically when your audience just does not know at all how your line goes from point A to point B, because there's either something missing or there's a powerful anchor that was leading you to a completely different point. No examples, I haven't been giving examples, those will all come in the future, but I'm not going to give you examples for plot holes like it's totally boring. Oh, look, a plot hole. It's so visible, it's indiscernible. That's such a writer word, discernible. Anyway, when all these concepts come in handy is when devising plot twists. It's not when doing the simple parts that you need to really worry about them, but you need to understand them really well to do plot twists. That's when you want the line to turn a heck of a wild turn, that makes more sense, right? To take a heck of a wild turn in its heading, twisting in a direction nobody saw coming. But it's bad if that is a direction that it was impossible to go in. And that's all dictated by how you arrange the plot points and anchors. Some of these words are hard to say, aren't they? Like, they sound so easy in my mind, and then they come to my mouth and blah, 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 you know? Anyway. But yeah, I mean, normally that is the problem. People think like, this is such a good twist. It's so unforeseen. Like, a good twist has to be unforeseen, but it cannot be one that was impossible to happen. Then it's a bad twist, like it comes out of nowhere, right? It is important to remember the kind of impact that a plotline has on the story. You can definitely have a good story on your hands, but mess it up with a bad plot. For example, you could start off with Star Wars the exact same way. Have the first act all there, but without the robots getting sought after by the troopers or the Luke teen angst. Both things respectively motivate getting Luke out of the house so he can be thoroughly destroyed without killing him. Spoilers, by the way. He could still be out, you know, maybe he just wakes up and it's like, I need some air, and leaves, you know. So he's still not there when the house is destroyed and his uncle and aunt are killed. Again, spoiler, by the way. but it would be off. It would be random. And a story is much more impactful if the drama makes sense and if the events all seem like inevitable instead of that was totally avoidable if the writer wanted it to be, you know? And you can have plot points coming out of nowhere, out of the woodwork, completely random occurrences, seemingly, but then you gotta provide plot anchors that make sense with them and help the line be steady and smooth. A great example of this, I think, is Game of Thrones, of which I won't speak to great lengths because spoilers, but it's a great example of far-off, unseen plot points being supported by anchors that are understandable, and that makes everything impactful, relatable, and all in all, believable, you know. Because otherwise, this feeling of untruth and unreal sets in, and it has nothing to do with the suspension of disbelief over what is happening, and everything to do with what is moving and shaping the story, which is the plot. There is no suspending your disbelief at that core level, I feel. It's just less apparent, less visible, less discernible. Yes, very good, class, very good. I really think you can have a good plotline and a bad story, most definitely. But the other way around, I don't think you can, because no matter how good the story is, you won't have any impact, incur any credible lesson, or pass on a believable narrative if you have your audience regular going, wait a minute, but wait, wasn't he? You know, so there's a difference between nitpicking and the near subconscious certainty that the plotline is not a road I will walk on, consciously, reasonably, you know. Now, I will often say in the future, like, this story is good, but the plot is bad. What I mean by that is that the intent of the story, I believe, is good. Like, they had a good story to tell, but because they messed up the plot, it didn't come out like the overall product just did not hit home. That's basically the final point that I want to make. Plot points and plot anchors are also only revealed sometimes at a later time. I've seen plenty of situations, specifically when I'm following TV shows or something that takes years to end, you know? Where people are saying there's a plot hole here, there's a plot hole there. This happens a lot in comic books, for example. Or in long-running book series. There's a plot hole here, there's a plot hole there, you know, that plot point doesn't make sense, this character's motivation doesn't make sense, and the problem is it hasn't been revealed yet, because the story and the plot can only really be evaluated, you know, as a whole, as a complete work. This is where movies get a lot of advantage and why it's way easier to analyze this kind of stuff in movies. Because they're over in 1 or 2 hours and you got the whole thing. I guess maybe not in the case of Fellowship of the Ring or Harry Potter 7 Part 1, but overall, as like major epic sagas that span a franchise of movies and stuff, all that aside, movies got a bit of an advantage on that. I mean, books take weeks to read, possibly, if you're not, like, without a whole lot of time. Whatever, you know what I mean. And what I mean is you never know if a story is really good or really bad until you have it whole. The only way you know is if it's the execution of the plot, the execution of the story, the execution of the storytelling, basically, not the plot or whatever. The execution of the storytelling, whatever medium it's being told in or being used to tell in, if this execution is really bad, then it's normally safe to call it a day halfway through a story. Because I mean, if it's failing epically, then and that's really the thing. Like, you can understand the core concepts, but it's always up to the execution. And there's a lot of stuff involved in executing. Depending on the medium you're using, you're going to need people, like lots of people, lots of skills, different skills, just to put together something that can do your story justice, But if you don't engineer a plot that shapes your story well, then everything else will be meaningless. Meaningless! Well, not meaningless. Your work will still be able to have success and make money and all of that good stuff, but it won't do the best stuff, which is deliver the message, deliver the story. On that note, I am going to bring 2 works of the movie business out into the open to serve as examples of this very point. 2 works that were pretty successful in different ways. 2 works that were successful more because of all the other arts involved rather than the storytelling, although one of them really wanted the storytelling to be the primary focus, or at least it seemed like it in the interviews of these people. Anyway, these 2 examples I think are very comparable, but one of them has a really good story, as in to tell, but mucks it up with the plot, and the other one has an okay story to tell, but has a really good plot. So the efforts of everyone involved on this second example carried on great and complemented the story beautifully. On the other hand, I wouldn't say so. The examples I'm going to pull are not, you're not going to be a fan of my examples. I wish you will be by the time I'm done. So listen in, keep focus, don't judge me, just as I announce the titles. All right. First one that I'm going to cover with the bad plot is I forgot the name. What the hell is the name? I think it's Borrow Time. Borrow Time, everybody. Borrow Time. Yeah. Borrow Time. And the other is a very famous movie from the past. You might remember it from your fondest childhood memories. Lion King. Yes. Oh, yes. Lion King is the one with a so-so story but excellent plot. Bear with me, please. Don't judge. Don't judge yet. Listen to the end, I beg of you. For this is my bet that if I can sell you these ideas to you, if I can show you how these concepts work with these works and how I compare the two, maybe, just maybe, you will be willing to listen to another one of these on other works of fiction, on other topics. Yes, all right. So Borrow Time. Ladies and gentlemen, Kuzcopia here, coming in loud and clear in a very special communication directed right at you, wonderful people, and you alone. You will not hear me say these words on any other medium other than this video. I would like to thank you for watching and or listening, and to invite you to listen in on the rest of the talk as I take all of these concepts and tackle 2 great achievements in animated storytelling, The Lion King and Borrow Time. Please find the links in the description box below. I would also invite you to share your thoughts, as I truly wish to improve at this kind of thing where I talk to nothing in a hopefully constructive way. kind of talk to a microphone, but it's nobody. So go ahead, crush me or sing my laurels. Do as you wish. It's a free country after all. Kinda, not really. But, well, the space is mine and I declare your freedom. Go nuts. But most of all, thanks again. And take care. Bye. Oh, gosh.